Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back, episode 236. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. We do this live on our YouTube channel, usually Sundays. This is a Labor Day special on Monday night. The audio available everywhere, but subscribe, jump in the comments if you can. We do appreciate that. Again, you can find us absolutely everywhere as we are in season 5. And boy, what a season this has been. And what a week to talk about our beloved Chicago White Sox. With me, as always, my dear friend, die-hard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Buddy, it's good to talk to you. Thank you for being flexible. And thank you for all of our listeners being flexible and waiting a day. Happy Labor Day to you.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed your Labor Day weekend. Wow. Yeah. What a weird, wild year this has turned out to be. You couldn't have predicted it if you gave me a billion predictions on how this year would just unfold. And would you have believed me if I said Lucas Giolito is now on his third team and given up 8 runs for 3 different teams in the same year? I saw this tweet earlier. The first pitcher since like 1893 to accomplish that feat. That's almost absurd that we even said it.
Yeah, that I did catch that just before we went on live here, and I wanted to get to the whole waiver stuff and Lopez and Giolito wave.
They're a package pair, aren't they?
They are. They come together. They're like Bert and Ernie, and so they get dumped and the Cleveland Guardians pick them up, and Giolito was not doing the Angels any favors out there in LA. We mentioned it in a previous episode that Lance Lynn has actually performed a little bit better with the Dodgers, but and here we go. Giolito not helping out Cleveland, which is fine by me, but it's weird seeing him in a Cleveland uniform.
Yeah.
What a bizarre turn of events. Sox tried to get rid of Clevenger. No dice there.
A
little too costly.
Because I was I know you have, because you do this for everybody out there, and we appreciate it, Nick. And that's our thanks to you on this Labor Day. You will watch just about every inning still, I think. And you're the one watching it for everybody else, and I appreciate that. I was checking in the other day, and I almost thought my ESPN app was wrong because it said Clevenger was pitching, and I thought he was on waivers, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together that nobody picked him up. I just assumed he was gone.
Yeah, it was like he was kind of gone the way he was pitching. Yeah. It was a horrible week, an absolute horrible week for the White Sox in a dejecting, gut-wrenching season. I don't know how many more adjectives or words I can use. And it was an irritating week. Of course, the inevitable happened, which I want to get to, but I'll set the stage here. State of the Sox is bad. It's dismal. And I don't see a ton of positives as we head into the end of this season, into the off season. And of course, what next year could be. A lot of things could change. I get that. But as we record here, very disheartening. 53 and 85, Pat. 53 and 85 are our White Sox. 32 games under 500, 18 and a half games back with 24 games to play. I believe my math is right on that. 24 games still left. On Thursday, of course, the inevitable happened. That's the big cookie here, the big ticket item that I think we should chop up. I mean, we could talk Sox getting swept by the Tigers. We could talk them losing against Baltimore, which is no surprise, or the just pathetic effort against the Royals on Labor Day. But I think the big one is Chris Getz, of course, announced as not only the general manager, but I believe the senior vice president. I mean, he's everything. And Jerry Reinsdorf spoke as well, which I was a little surprised about. And I want to get your thoughts. We've had a few days to kind of let this marinate, and My reaction and my feelings haven't really changed much. And we knew this was kind of coming. We talked about it on a previous episode. A lot of folks, this isn't like, this wasn't terribly shocking. It's just the way that it finally happened, the inevitable, right? Like it became official, it stung. And then some of Jerry's comments, boy, it's good, but he probably doesn't talk very often. So I guess your initial thoughts or things maybe that you have come around to over these last few days with those big announcements.
Well, let's start first with Chris Getz getting the job, and whether you believe he deserved it or not, or any feelings that we have. The only opinion that really matters is Jerry Reinsdorf, and I think the saddest thing of all, Nick, and we can talk, and I'm sure you've got some great quotes from Mr. Reinsdorf on why he chose Chris Getz, but the laziness that went into it. He can talk about the interviews he conducted over a month internally about what the team should do and the direction they should go in the firing of Williams and Hahn, but he decided to stop short. Right? He decided to stop short of looking at an opportunity to really improve this ball club from the inside out, this organization, if you will, from the inside out. And he thought, rather than doing a whole lot of extra work, because I've done a lot already talking to people in this building, I don't like even going to the games anymore. So why would I want to do any more work while I'm here? I'm just going to promote Chris Getz. He's part of it. He's been here. It's not his fault. We're the worst, one of the worst, minor league systems in all of baseball. He's been with the Royals. What a great franchise that has been over the past 30 years or so. Let's make sure we promote this guy because he's got some great ideas that he's bringing with him. And I think it was Frank Thomas. I don't know if it was the pregame or postgame one day, and Frank was, I think, being a little bit reserved and being a little bit respectful of Chris Getz, knowing Chris a little bit from what he said. But he wasn't real thrilled that not everybody's being evaluated, right? Chris Getz automatically comes in and says, well, Pedro Grifol is our manager next year. That's already been decided. Well, why not take, again, the laziness? Why not take the extra opportunity to really, if you're the guy and you want to make sure that this is really good, let's evaluate what this guy has done over the past, whatever ball games this year, or 75% of the year, if not more. And let's see what he's really done to see if he's deserving in coming back. So I guess it's now a continuing legacy of laziness, just going with what the easy thing is rather than actually putting in the work and making tough decisions or going outside of your organization and at least conducting interviews from the outside. I don't know that were there ever interviews conducted outside of Chris Getz?
No,
that you know of? I mean, I
no.
never heard anything. Like sometimes you'll hear about that, right? Managers that get brought in, you'll hear they're interviewing today or interviewing tomorrow, or they've got this set up, or this guy's coming in, or this guy did a Zoom thing. You never heard any of that. I could be crazy and wrong, but I didn't hear anything like that.
No, Reinsdorf mentioned that he knew everybody. He knew, he had the list. I know who's available. I know who I could bring in. And what's the point? Because it would take X candidate, whatever you want to say, a year, right, to figure out this White Sox team. And I don't have the time to do that. So that was his reasoning. I mean, there's so much to really break down with this. The more like I reread Reinsdorf's comments and Getz's comments, and Getz is in a really difficult spot here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he is, a good evaluator of talent down the road. Maybe, he learns the job quickly and he is a successful GM, maybe, but he's going to have to learn on the job. He's going to learn on the fly here, and that's going to take some time. He hasn't done one of these types of off seasons before, where he's going to be evaluating talent and going through and bringing in talent, if that's where they're headed, in the free agency with trades and whatever that may be. So Reinsdorf's comments to me were kind of like, they negated each other. It's like, well, you didn't want to waste time, okay, by going through a search and bringing in somebody that was going to have to get used to the whole organization and evaluate everybody. But you're going to go with somebody that has very little experience, hardly any experience, and that's going to be a time waster, which is what Pedro Grifol has been, a time waster. You've wasted this year because you went with somebody that had zero managerial experience from the Kansas City Royals. Sure, we could say that. And you thought, well, we're in a competitive window. We like our core. We think we still compete, which I want to talk about. Boy, how they discuss the AL Central, how that is supposed to be some weak place where we're going to thrive in the AL Central. I want to talk about that too. And this is the product that came out of all of this. Okay, 32 games under 500. So you've wasted a year by Pedro trying to learn the craft on the fly and figure things out. So are you somebody that cares about time, Jerry Reinsdorf, or are you somebody that, is willing to waste it? I can't figure it out because everything that this organization has done in the last several years has been hypocritical. It's been negating, each other.
Yeah, it's confounding, Nick, and it's really never going to get any better until there's different ownership. And we've talked about that a lot. I guess the thing that struck me is the most interesting thing that Jerry said, or the thing that really stuck with me as he talked about. And somebody put it in the chat. Now it's too high up. I can't see it now, but he talks about, well, what else would I do? What else would I do if I didn't own this team? I don't know how to play bridge. I don't play golf. I'm not a very, I think he said he's not a very interesting guy, even though, I think it's pretty interesting to own two sports franchises. I think that's pretty interesting. But what else would I do? He treats owning a baseball team as if it's a retirement gig. Like, oh, well, what am I going to do now that I'm retired? Oh, I guess I'll go own a baseball team, keep myself busy, like being a starter at a golf course. I mean, are we? It's a shame. It really is a shame. And I thought about this too the other day, which made me even more sad. You and I are both 42 years old. He's been the owner of this team for 42 years. He's the only owner that you and I have ever known. And how the hell we became fans of this team, I'll never know. But it's amazing that it happened. It's almost by grace of God that it happened, that anybody's a fan of this team. And how he can't see that if you put good things together and produce on a year in and year out basis, how this fan base will support you. It will support you. I think in 2006, they drew, I want to say it was either 2.6 or 2.9 million fans, something like that, an average of 35,000 a game. If you show that you're going to really do the right things and make the right moves, this fan base wants to love this team. They want to love you. They just want to wrap their arms around you and be out there, enjoy the summers. But we are left at the end of the season, and most seasons like we are right now. Who is this guy pitching today? Who knows? They're just playing out the string. It's September. There's September call-ups. Who cares? What are we going to do in the offseason? I don't know. When's opening day? Do you think they'll have a chance to compete in this weak division? And just rinse and repeat. And it's really taking advantage of us as fans, Nick. And Jerry has taken advantage of people like you and I for years and years and years. And it's really getting exhausting. And I'm really, really tired of it. I found myself driving home. I was in training in Milwaukee on Thursday afternoon for work. And I'm driving home with a couple other coworkers in the car. And I got a text. Somebody got a text that Jerry was speaking. And I thought, I have to listen to this. Because I wasn't listening to anything at the time. And I turned it on and I found myself like a crazy person. I'm not kidding you, Nick, MFing the radio 3 or 4 different times. And I think I scared some of my coworkers because I'm just tired of his BS. It's ridiculous.
I will say I appreciated that he spoke, that he got in front of a microphone, but some of the stuff here, and I do want to read some of the actual quotes because I found them to be pretty alarming. To get inside of his mind on what he thinks and how he actually articulated some of this stuff and just came out and said it was frustrating. So if I were a fan, I'd be pissed. I'd be very angry. But at the same time, this is the first really, really bad year. We won the. This is honestly what he said. We won the division in 2021. We were 500 last year. That's nobody's goal to be 500, but that's still average. This is the first disaster. This is the first real disaster. So right there, that clues you into how just out of touch he is to what the fans perceive. He is coming from such a different world. I mean, what he thinks is as a success or a failure is nowhere near what we are thinking as fans.
And hence why Han and Kenny Williams were around for so long.
Yeah,
because if that's how you're judging, if that's how you're judging what you seem as a success, well, you guys haven't done completely terrible. The place isn't on fire. The walls are still up. Continue, carry on, keep going.
Yeah, it brings me back to that quote that was leaked several years ago that he might have been saying to some executive with Miami about, just try to finish second. Was that the tone of it? Just kind of finish second and your fans will be happy that you're kind of in it. But you don't need to go out and try to win the thing. Just hang around, give them something to get excited about.
Yeah, it's almost like the quotes that old man Wirtz used to say with the Blackhawks. Stanley Cups are expensive. It's like you don't want to hear that as a fan. What the hell? What are we here for? What are we doing this for?
Let me continue then. I don't want to make predictions, but in this division, here we go again. In this division, and with the core of talent that we have, I would hope and I expect that next year is going to be a lot better than this year. How much better? I don't know, but look at the core of this team. Tired of hearing about the core. Okay, we've heard about the core for the last couple years. I mean, hasn't the core been playing the last few days? I mean, I've been trying to watch as much as I possibly can, but isn't the core kind of still playing? And they just got absolutely undressed by the Kansas City Royals on Monday and swept by the Tigers. And I can't even use that tone of you got swept by the Tigers. The Sox are one of the worst teams in all of baseball. So you can't be saying anymore, oh, you lost to the Tigers or you lost to the Royals. We're right down there. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's you shouldn't be saying that in that type of tone anymore. So this core was supposed to produce this year. So what are you telling me? All of a sudden something's going to click. All of a sudden Pedro is going to say, well, I wasn't really sure how to handle this core in 2023. I think I'll figure it out in 2024. I think they'll listen to me this offseason and they'll care a little bit more. And I think I'll be able to figure it out. And then this division nonsense telling me that thank goodness we're in the AL Central. Okay, well, you just got absolutely pounded by AL Central opponents the last 4 games. Every game that Chris Getz has been the ruler of everything, the decision maker, baseball decision maker on the South Side. So, and Getz said it in his press conference. Well, fortunately, we play in the AL Central. Like that is something that we should be, we got that going for us. So, we could probably bounce back quickly. That to me is just a ridiculously lazy and unfortunate mentality that's being articulated and said out loud.
Well, it's also highly offensive to anybody else in the division, right? If you're in the division and I'm looking, if I'm the Twins and over the past, God, what was the stat? Maybe over the last 40, well, since I think Jerry's been the owner, let's say it's the last 40 years. And I think the Twins and Guardians / Indians have won the division the most time in that time span. And I think the Sox are tied with maybe the Royals, or no, they're tied with the Tigers with a number of times. I think it's 4 of times that they've won the division, 4 times, and they're tied with the Tigers. Only the Royals are worse. So it's not like you've gone out and won the division every other year, win it 7 out of 10 years, and you've dominated this division, and you can go, well, we've only been able to handle this division. You suck. You almost suck as bad as the Royals. And oh, by the way, you've got enough royal blood now in the organization that you will continue to go down this way. So why would you ever say it's a good thing that we're in this division? Because this division has continually kicked your ass for 42 years.
And you've done nothing to take advantage of it. It's not like you said, well, okay, we're in the AL Central, so this offseason, let's really win the thing. Let's just not try to lose. Let's really win it. Let's go out and allocate money the right way. Let's really push and fill all the necessary holes that we haven't been able to do. Let's get a superstar arm. Let's really, let's really do this because we're in the AL Central, and we've got this core. We've got this core, this foundation. Well, guess what? The core, this foundation is weak. I'm sorry, it is weak.
Could you say it's a rotten core?
I would say it is on its way to becoming rotten.
Yeah.
And eventually you just have to say, you are what you are. You are what the back of your baseball card says. I don't like, you can hope, which is what the Sox did in the offseason. They hoped and they wished and they prayed for a return to accustomed levels or some sort of levels. They hoped for health. They hoped that things were going to turn around. Well, what happens if they don't turn around? Well, we're finding out now is what you do is you hope that next year they'll turn around. Mm-hmm. Next year is going to be the year that we're going to get what we want out of these guys that we thought we were getting out of them. And we don't have to do much more because look at it. We're in this weak, quote unquote, weak division. I'm tired of hearing it. And to hear it out loud, to actually hear it stated by Reinsdorf and then by Getz, it was really
That's how he got hired. That's how he got hired. Wow, this guy thinks just like I do. This is good. And Howard pointed out, I'm sorry, I was wrong. It's been 6 division titles. I didn't mean to slight the Sox, those 2 other division wins that they had. So my apologies to the crowd, but it's a sad state of affairs. It's unfortunate that this is where we are. And you're right. Going back to what you said about Chris Getz earlier is, dude, he's really behind the 8 ball. I don't know if he'll be a good GM. I don't know, what kind of evaluator he will end up being. But one thing, he's going to be here for a while. He's going to be given time to figure it out, right? This is not. He can have really bad years as long as they're not disasters like this year. He should be fine. So we're going to get a good look and a good feel for Chris Getz for a long, long time, friend.
Here's Reinsdorf on the reasoning of why he went with Getz. I wanted baseball taught in the minor leagues a certain way where people understand what they're doing and understood what's the right thing to do in certain situations, but nobody ever did it right until Chris came along. And this I observed a couple of years ago. I was thrilled with it. So there's Reinsdorf, little peek into his mentality. Yeah, look, Getz might be a competent, successful GM eventually, but when you remove a couple of guys that have been with the organization for a little over 20 years, and you're going through just a depressing stretch where you had a rebuild and that went horribly wrong, and now you're trying to figure things out again. I'm sorry, to not even do a search, to not even do some sort of, just an interview process. Let it stretch for a little while. That is not good.
Yeah.
It's bad. I mean, it's bad on all accounts.
And how do you feel about, Chris thinking that this is going to be a quick fix? I mean, how confident are you? Because to me, it feels like we're on the brink right now. Like we're on the edge of this being a full blown rebuild, like tear it down to the studs situation. But do you think that Chris Getz can put his hands on a Yohan Moncada and get him to be more of a team guy and play for each other guy? Do you think he'll be able to put his hands on an Eloy Jimenez and rub his hamstrings down enough to where he doesn't get hurt every other day?
Chris gets his hands on.
Yes, very hands on. I mean, what percentage would you put it on that next year is a competitive year?
Low.
Yeah.
Low, very, very low. And from what I've been seeing lately, I mean, again, when just looking at the core, these guys that are supposed to be around next year and that everybody talks about is, hey, we've got a solid foundation. We've got something to build upon. I don't like what you're building upon.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from Luis Robert Jr., I mean, so you don't have much. So so if Pedro Grifol, who had zero experience as a manager, comes in and talked up this game, and this is what I'm going to do, and we're going to prepare to kick your ass every single night and make fans proud and blah, blah, blah. He was ready to say literally anything to get fans on his side. Okay. Hey, I got a dream job. I finally got to be a manager of a big league club. I am going to rah, rah, rah. I am going to give you all of that. And I bought into it because it was something different outside the organization. Okay, maybe players will respond to this, his plan for the offseason and what, Camelback Ranch is going to be like. And, we're going to break things down in 4-day increments and this. And I'm like, okay, this guy sounds like he really knows what he's doing. Look, I just don't think players respected him. I don't think they looked at him like, okay, I'm going to listen to you. If I wasn't going to listen to La Russa, how am I going to listen to you? And I don't know if Pedro knew how to deal with that. Any type of animosity or any type of heads hitting together. Well, I don't have much to stand on. Yeah. I've never been a manager before, and I've been with the Royals, and so you know what I mean? So how is Getz then going to be able to get in anybody's face and truly evaluate or light a fire under anybody? I just think you have to look at some of these players, and he said, nobody's untouchable. I think you have to take a serious look and say, what is the future with some of these guys? Pedro, do you want these guys on your team? Do you want to build with these guys? Or do you get a sense that they're not willing to buy into what you're trying to do? You have to make that serious decision. And I don't know if Chris Getz is the guy to do that. He's going to be the one doing it with Pedro Grifol. Tony La Russa is the consultant.
He's available. Did you ask him if he was available tonight, by the way? Because Jerry said he was available for anybody, apparently, for anything. We could use some help. Nick, you and I always could use some help with our content. You and I are always struggling to figure out what we are going to talk about on this show. We could have used some help from Tony. And maybe he was available for that. I think maybe you were too lazy and didn't reach out in time. So that's not. I'll put that.
I might not have his current contact information if he's back.
He only answers rotary phones, though.
I see. Well, that could be the problem.
He's got the only phone he has is like the bullpen phone in his house, and that's what he picks up.
I don't have the number to that. I'll have to work on that.
It's one.
Yeah. It's low. The digits are low.
Yeah.
I just this is a Getz quote. We're fortunate to play in the American League Central, and we've got to find ways to build depth and balance to this roster to make us better for next year and beyond. We need to look at our roster, and if that means we need to talk to other clubs or fill gaps in other ways, we're going to do that. So I don't know what that means. You're going to call up other baseball clubs and say, how do you do things? How are you doing things the right way? How do you tell me, how do you find success? Because I have no idea what I'm doing, and maybe you could clue me in a little bit.
You know what? It just kind of breaks my heart to think about, what if, the what if game, what if we would have done things differently? And I look at the Philadelphia Phillies with two guys that the Sox certainly could have had, one being Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber, two left-handed bats, which we desperately could use in this lineup with power. Harper's, both of them seem like leaders and leadership, which we lack right now. Wouldn't it be nice if that would have been added to the mix years ago? I just wonder if things could have been a little bit different here, if that one was ever landed and Jerry ever opened up the checkbook to make big moves like that, because that's what it's going to really take, Nick. And we've talked about it a lot on this show, and personally, they're not going to, if it's a quick turnaround like they're talking about, it's a spend money type of thing if you want a quick fix to try and get it sped up a little bit, because there is some talent on this team, and I just wonder if there was some influx of free agency, which this class of free agents I'm hearing is not going to be very good anyway. But if there was like, we're getting him on our team, maybe that rejuvenates guys. Maybe it's not. Maybe then that takes care of the. I don't really care what that manager says. Maybe it's some rejuvenation that the team is investing in the players on this squad. And you got to get, you know what I mean? What I'm trying to get at, like, does that
I
change
get
the
what you're
mindset
saying,
of the players?
like some new blood, can be helpful. Perhaps a team seeing that, some heavy hitters are being brought in. The team is spending money in the right way, premium money on premium talent. But then I have to say, like, is that your motivation, or is that the thing that gets you up for the challenge, is when you have others that can take the load off of your shoulder? Or are you not strong enough, confident enough in your own abilities to go out there and play baseball on the South Side? Like, you need somebody else that's done something already in the league to take the weight off. I'm sorry. Like, I don't believe in this core, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've seen enough. So if you keep telling me, oh, well, thank goodness we have this core to build around. What have they done?
Yeah.
What have they collectively done? It doesn't give me a lot of confidence.
We've talked a lot about the disappointment that is Yohan Moncada and Eloy Jimenez. I think the most, right? Because I feel like those are the
you got to add
guys,
Kopech in there now,
and
too.
Kopech in there from the pitching side. But you were a big guy on Andrew Vaughn. And I think Andrew Vaughn has been, extremely disappointing, if you ask me, and in terms of what he's produced. So where are you at as a person? I think that was really hopeful for him to be the star he was, or at least from the plate side, the star that we thought we were going to get, and now what we're getting is not even close to that. So where you at? Is that part of your core where you're just disappointed and don't have any faith in?
Yeah, I'm disappointed in him. I really am. I thought by him returning to first base, I know there was a lot on his shoulders, but I thought he was going to stay relatively healthy, which I think he has, unless there's something nagging and I don't know about.
Well, it's always been the back, right? With him and the back, just like Moncada, the back issues will continue to flare up on guys throughout the season. There's not really much you can do, it seemingly, for those situations. So if you got two guys on your infield that have creaky backs, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, I did think it was going to be year of the Vaughn. I really did. I thought he was going to emerge, and it's just when there's so much bad and nobody is exciting except for Luis Robert Jr. And there's been so much turmoil, and I mean, you could shine the spotlight on there's nowhere to hide. You could shine it, and he was supposed to, with that high of a draft pick, and you get rid of Jose Abreu, you clear the path for Andrew Vaughn. I absolutely expected more. Does he not have help around him? Is he not guarded? I don't know. And I'm not at all saying like, well, next year's going to be better. I mean, I have no faith in that.
Yeah.
I really, nobody has shown me much, again, except for, Robert, wow. When you play 85% of the games, 90% of the games, whatever it's been, we're seeing what we wanted to finally see. Yeah. We just haven't seen it. I haven't seen bounce back years for anybody. Kopech has been an absolute disaster. I mean, his post-game interviews, I feel for the guy. I mean, he looks like if you have ever been asked a question in an interview and you don't know how to answer this, but you're going to try to find your way out of it by continuing to talk. And hopefully somehow you find your way through a response that you can kind of put a bow on the answer. I mean, he just looks like a deer in headlights, and he is verbally trying to like unpack everything, that's happening in his mind. And it's like, wow, friend, I don't think you know where you're at right now. And that's,
it's almost like
I just feel bad for the guy. I don't, and yeah, he could go to the bullpen, but if you can't throw strikes, and you have no control, then what good are you? I'm sorry. His velocity is dropped. I mean, he can't even, his the duration of his outings is, wow, it's jaw dropping, and that's another one. Is like Kopech, man, watch out for this guy. This was his year. And this was the year for him to show it to me, and I think to all fans. And now I just, what's going to unlock?
Yeah.
Like, what are they going to figure out?
I don't know what they will figure out. And I think for maybe a discussion in the offseason is this, maybe the rest of the staff gets evaluated. Pedro is obviously safe, but Ethan Katz is not Pedro's guy, right? This is how the Sox do it. You can be the manager, but the first base coach is that guy over there. That's Daryl Boston. He doesn't change. And Ethan Katz,
never leaves.
Just like Don Cooper was always, and
yeah.
Cooper did a great job for a long time. I think he no pun intended, lost his fastball towards the end of his coaching career. But Ethan Katz seemingly is right now the pitching coach, and he has not really done a whole lot with this staff. When the guys that were here, and his boy Giolito has just only gotten worse since he's gotten here. So I think he's a guy that gets evaluated. I did write something down because I thought it was funny when you're talking about Kopech in his post-game interview. It reminds me of when Will Ferrell was in Old School and he was doing the debates, and he had this like wonderful answer, and then it was like he was in a trance and he woke up and he didn't know what he was, if he was coherent or not. So that's what I just thought of, and I had to mention that because I thought it was hilarious. But
just kind of like, what happened? Whoa. I blacked out. Sure.
And it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with the rest of this coaching staff, not just Ethan Katz, but we've talked a lot about like the philosophy of hitting that was going to change this year in terms of
patience at the plate, recognizing a strike zone, the discipline. Oh, that was supposed to be worked on in the off season. And then in April, Pedro was questioned about it. And it's like, well, this takes some time. This is an art form. And here we are.
Is it really an art form? I mean, how? I mean, we're not sculpting things out of clay here. It's being patient at the plate and swinging at strikes.
I think what he was referring to is you are completely changing a player's mentality and approach of how they, look at an at bat, during an at bat, their prep, all of that stuff. Again, that shouldn't be happening necessarily in season as much. I mean, that game plan of this is how we're going to attack pitchers on a nightly basis as a team. This is our focus. We want to get on base. This is what your job is. We're going to prepare you as best as possible for what you could be potentially seeing, from an arm on any given night, what this opponent's staff is like, what they're traditionally going to do. That just went out the window, or didn't even exist, or guys just said, you know what, I'm sorry, you're telling me that, but I have no interest in listening to it whatsoever.
It's very confounding.
So yeah, every position has to be reevaluated. So if you're going to bring in a new general manager from outside the organization with a track record, with a proven track record of handling this kind of stuff, well, they're going to go through and have to do all their due diligence. Getz is going to have to do his due diligence. So it 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. I'd rather take somebody that maybe is from outside of the organization, but has had some experience, some success in doing this type of thing. Sydney, and I know there's some others. Thank you so much, folks, for jumping in the comments and sharing this. We're kind of all over the. It's still, I'm seeing a little red still from Thursday's announcement. But Sydney talked about Blake Snell or Josh Hader. Look, I hope they go after arms. They need arms. We need a bullpen that needs to be figured out. Who knows what's going to happen with Hendricks? He just needs to physically get right. We have a starting staff that, oh my goodness, if Kopech's your number 2, we have a ton of problems. Cease, dropped an egg in Baltimore and has not looked himself this year. What does Jerry think of all this? Look, we're not going to be in on the Ohtani race. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, good. I'm glad that we don't have to go into the off season thinking, let's have an emergency podcast because there might be a rumor about the Sox getting Ohtani, that we can just put that to bed, Nick. We don't have to waste any time thinking about it, dreaming about it. Forget it.
So he's telling us that they're not going to be in the Ohtani race, which, whoa, boy, that was news to me. And we're not going to sign pitchers to 10-year deals, but we're going to try to get better. And that means trades. It potentially means signing free agents. It means playing smarter baseball. It's a lot of things. I don't have a lot of time left. I don't want to go through a long rebuild. I only expect to be here for another 10 years. So if he's another 87, going to be 88 in February. He's really, that's a gamble.
He's a gamble.
Jared, that's a gamble. But doesn't have a lot of time, but I expect to be here for another 10 years.
You know what? If I was in the room and there's obviously people that do this for a living and ask great questions. My follow-up, I guess, would have been, and maybe somebody did, and I didn't hear the entire interview, was, why are you out on Ohtani? Can you explain? Because I'd like to hear it from his mouth that of why you won't invest back into your organization and do something exciting. And now with Ohtani, seemingly having surgery, he may not get what, was talked about before anyway. So, but that's a moot point. It doesn't really matter. They're not getting him anyway. But why wouldn't you consider it? Why wouldn't you go? That would be interesting. Yes, it would cost a lot of money, but internationally, we would be a brand, right? Overseas, you could make a lot of money off of signing that guy, right? You wouldn't have to worry about putting out commercials for buying season ticket packages for next year, because I can guarantee you'd have people lined up to come to the ballpark, and you would draw just because of Shohei
just
Ohtani.
the new ad revenue, the merchandise, the other different deals that would be coming through. My mind spins. I mean, this was the whole Bryce Harper thing that we were in Machado, but Bryce Harper, and then you see the lines, when teams sign new players and superstars, and just the merchandise alone. And we've all seen the information on, when, a team signs a player, a big name player, what happens to ticket sales almost immediately. The percentage that goes up for season tickets and single game tickets and all that kind of stuff. I want to give you, someone in the chat asked about the now infamous Branch Rickey quote from Jerry Reinsdorf. and this is what Jer had to say. I could bring Branch Rickey in if he was available, and he'd have to evaluate everybody. You lose a year. And here I had somebody inside who was very, very competitive. And it might even be the guy I would select if I had to talk to other guys. So I came to the conclusion that if I've got a guy inside who can do the job, why not? Why not do it inside and save a year? That's basically how I got to Chris. Reinsdorf is trying to hire or still wishful about a general manager and executive that was in the early 1900s.
Is he with us currently? I believe he died in the 70s, maybe in the 60s.
But when you dissect that quote there and you get past the Branch Rickey nonsense and where he's at, he's just caught in this time warp, Reinsdorf is. And then you say, like, well, what he's essentially saying to us, if you read between the lines, is I got somebody right here. They'll do. I don't need to go outside and spend my time and waste my time, even though he's got limitless time because he doesn't play bridge or golf or do anything. So I could do that, and I could bring in a real executive that knows what they're doing and that has a proven track record that would excite this fan base. But I got someone here, and they might very well be able to do it. So that's how I came up with this conclusion.
And it also shows you that. Yeah, and it also shows you that he has no faith in anybody else that has had an original idea since 1980, right? If you're not a dinosaur of baseball, you're not worth talking to. Now, I get it. There's been a lot of people that have a lot of experience and have wealth of knowledge in this game and will forget more about baseball than I'll ever know. I completely understand that. But to the fact that you don't want to try and go out and listen to maybe younger people in other organizations that are having success and try and bring in some new ideas, then continue to bring in the guy that he was a White Sox, so we'll be loyal to him and he's going to do great. And that's fantastic. He's part of the, he knows how to, the White Sox way, which is, just be my meat shield, and that'll be fantastic. Again, it's all Jerry. And I love the sign that was up in the ballpark before security ripped it away. Yeah. And the fact that, I get it. You're not going to be able to, we can't fire the owner. And he mentioned that too, right? The arrogant comment that he made, I can't get rid of me. I'm the owner type of thing. Some comment he made during it, just another pompous asshole-ish.
He's just completely out of touch, man. I've read through his stuff, all of his stuff. Again, I appreciate that he got in front of a microphone, but he is just delusional. If that is how he really thinks, and he thinks that passionate, invested Sox fans are going to buy into that and say, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think we'll just run it back. Why not just bring Pedro Grifol back and just kick Getz right up to that big decision maker, executive spot? That makes sense. Before, I know we're on it, man. Time flies, Pat. It absolutely flies here. And before I forget, I do want to get to a Pedro quote.
Oh, God, I love Pedro quotes.
I've got two of them here. And this is in this horrible stretch of White Sox baseball this season, and especially this past week, the sweep of the Tigers and the blowout against the Royals. It's all about cleaning things up, and we got to clean things up, and we'll address that. But this was Pedro talking about his hopes for 2024. When you have a core of players like this, like we have, there's always an opportunity to do something special. So I got a good chuckle out of that because, again, it is all about we're just going to roll the dice, and you never know. It might come up your numbers. You never know. We're just going to gamble. We are just going to throw things to chance. Here's my favorite in reference to Chris Getz. This is, and Pedro said a bunch of different things because they are connected. Pedro Grifol and Chris Getz, folks, they are connected. Chris Getz was instrumental in bringing Pedro Grifol to the Chicago White Sox, and Pedro has just got nothing but amazing things to say about Getz. So this was Grifol talking about Getz. He was a pretty damn good big league player, and I know he's going to be a damn good general manager. Here is your information on Chris Getz. His career slash line as a big leaguer, 250, 309, 307. 459 games in 7 years, 352 hits, 3 home runs.
Oh, pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good.
Pretty damn
big
good.
leaguer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
Would
I
you
mean,
think when someone says Chris Getz, did you say damn good big leaguer? I'll tell you that about it. I
not
don't know
just
if I can
damn good.
rattle his numbers, but damn good big leaguer.
Pretty damn good is what I think of Chris Getz, of course.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, that Pedro quote should be sponsored by Super Rope. Still in ballpark since what, 1875? I don't know how long they've been cranking out that licorice Super Rope, but we should talk to them. They should be our sponsor for quote of the week.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to tell me that the playing career of a Chris Getz will eventually mirror the GM career, we are in for a real treat, my friend.
That segues, cinch it up and hunker down. We'll end on this. We'll end on a positive.
Okay.
Happy birthday, Hawk Harrelson.
Yes.
82, I believe, on this date as we record here, September 4th. Pat, I don't want to speak for you, but I think I can. He was the soundtrack of our baseball youth into our teens and 20s. That was the soundtrack of summer. I mean, and then you had Farmio and Rooney on the radio driving around, going to family barbecues, what have you. But Hawk and Wimpy, that is what we had. And man, hey, Benetti does an amazing job. Benetti is a professional. He and Stone go together really well. But I miss Hawk. There are days when I just absolutely miss Hawk. Was he a homer? Absolutely, and I loved it. What he said, he made you feel if you were a passionate diehard Sox fan. And I mean, towards the end, I think it was just, the grind was getting to him a little bit, I would imagine. But wow, a legend, absolute legend. And happy birthday to the Hawk.
Yeah, happy birthday, Hawk. And this is going to sound weird, but because of a person that never didn't play competitively ever, I learned the game by listening to Hawk Harrelson, and I told that to somebody that's not a Sox fan. They rolled their eyes at me, but I learned baseball from two people, from my dad and from Hawk Harrelson, and watching when I was a kid growing up and just loving it. I just loved it. And I couldn't wait to turn on the game, mostly because of him, because of the calls, because of the nicknames, because of, what he meant in terms of, the organization and speaking for the fans. And he would speak our frustrations and he would speak our exuberance when things went well. And, he's missed, and those types of announcers are few and far between. And I would love to have, nothing would make me happier than to have a couple games back of prime Hawk. Towards the end, it was, the game had passed him by, but that's that's life for everybody. So,
I'll tell you what, man,
love them.
Legends Day. You bring Nancy Faust back, you bring Hawk back, once or twice a year. Legends Day, maybe on a Sunday afternoon game. Just things like this can be done. Whether Faust and Harrelson want to do it, I have no idea. But to just, there's so much rich history. Over 120 years. You said at the beginning of this episode, just how do you get to become a Sox fan? And I think for both of us, it's just multi-generational. You're just born into it. My parents were Sox fans. My grandparents were Sox fans. My great-grandfather was a Sox fan on the south side of Chicago. And you get, you're taken to games. You're taught about the players. You're dressed in the gear. You're bought the baseball hat, and and you get to identify with that team. And then you take that on. You carry that. And you say, this is my team. I was taught this team. This is how it was. And, I'm pot committed, just too much invested. I don't have a second or third team. I'm a Bears fan, sure, and a Bulls and Blackhawks, but me, I'm all in on the Sox all year round.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just, that's where it just pains me. And I know it does to so many people that not only listen, but, have been with the Sox for so many years. It's really been a dagger of what has happened to this organization. So I said I was going to leave on a positive note, and here I go going down here. But I wanted to address that, and it's like, well, how do you analyze the White Sox right now? The White Sox they just exist. They're like a house plant, or a floor rug. They're just there.
Mm-hmm.
They are just there taking up space, and they're just an MLB team. So that's really all it is.
Well, that was well said, Nick. And nothing is more positive to end the show on than comparing them to a house plant, I suppose. House plants can be lovely if you water them and take care of them and sing to them.
That's the thing, Pat. You got to take care of them. You have got to nourish and mulch, and you've got to love it. And I don't think this organization has been taken care of and loved and nurtured and been given the proper sustenance to survive. So now it just simply is there, pushed in the corner.
Withered.
How's that?
Well, that was beautiful, Nick. I love it when you analyze.
There you go. Tying it up with an excellent Hawk quote. Well, Pat, it is always a pleasure, buddy. This is therapy. This is enjoyable. Being able to talk White Sox with you is an absolute treat. And thank you for, so many weeks. We don't have too many more in this season. We, of course, go all through the off season, but we don't have too many more Sundays left of this season. Thank God.
Yes. Thank the good Lord above. And I'm sure you and I will do a ton of podcasts in the off season, a ton of rumors, and Chris gets wheeling and dealing, and we'll be breaking those all down. I can't wait for that part of the season as well, my friend.
This is going to be one of my favorite ones in the off season. I know we're not getting Ohtani, but what if we were getting Ohtani? that will be a fun one to just, the hypotheticals. But folks, thank you so much for jumping in on the comments. I really appreciate you passing this podcast along to other White Sox fans. You can find us absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. We've got a YouTube channel. Appreciate you subscribing, joining the fun. Usually on Sunday nights. This is a fun Labor Day edition. We're on Twitter at Good Guys TV. We've got a Facebook fan page. We're in our 5th season here, believe it or not. So diehard Sox fans, just trying to give this organization a little bit more attention, but it has been difficult the last few years. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.